Well, hello everyone. I'm Elena from Wiki Business. I'm one of the community moderators of the OpenMAVN project and initiative. And we are glad to have you here today on our first webinar on the engineering aspects of the OpenMAVN initiative. More people are joining, and we understand that for some newly joined developers, they might have some questions like, where do I start? What are the first steps? How I start contributing? What is the technology used? And so on. So today is the very right meeting to ask all of these questions, and we want to make onboarding of developers as smooth as possible. So we are ready, and we will be glad to cover your questions. Just a quick reminder, last week we had a general session on the OpenMAVN initiative. If you missed it and would like to check, we have the video which we can share with you. And next week as well, we are going to have next general session to make you update on the initiative. And today's meeting is a technical one. Today, our team tech leads will tell you about infrastructure, architecture. We will consider front-end, back-end, mobile parts of the system. And in the end of the meeting, we are going to have Q&A sessions. So you'll be able to ask your questions. And please feel free to leave your questions in the chat, so we will be able to address them later on. So I think, yeah, I'm not sharing the presentation, by the way. Let me share. Yeah, so today these are our community moderators, and our tech moderators are going to be speakers today. And I suppose that we start. Our first topic is general architecture, and I pass the word to Yuri Gushkov, head of engineering and manager of the project on GitHub. Yuri, please.
Hello. So, few words about our architecture. We have architecture based on a set of microservices that communicate with each other via REST API and via RabbitMQ, and provide APIs that are used by mobile applications and front end. So nothing special, and in ideal world, it can be an ideal architecture, but we have some drawbacks. In some parts, our system is not distributed, but distributed monolith, so it requires some refactoring. But I'm sure that this architecture will be familiar almost to all developers who can be ready to contribute. So let's start from front end part, and our front end lead, Vitaly Dasaev, will say a few words about front end repositories and front end architecture.
Yes, thank you, Yuri. I will share my screen. Start sharing. Oh, you should see now. Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you. So we have like organization OpenMAVN in the GitHub, and there are a lot of repositories. Some of them like welcome is for newcomers. Some of them PM for project management, and other are repositories for are technical. And for front-end, we have two repositories, one related to the back office or like admin portal that aimed for SME small and middle businesses, owners or managers to register here and to be able to register themselves and to manage their campaigns, etc. And we have customer website which is aimed on customers which use mobile applications. And if we look into it, so we have Angular 9 version, and there in README file that is reproduced here, you can see the instruction how to launch the local version of this. So this is what you need as front-end developer, for example, to launch it locally and start to investigate and to develop things. Yeah, and the look and feel is also published on the demo.maven.ch website publicly for now, and you can also to see the same on your local machine when you launch by this instruction locally. So we have a lot of like features we have used inside. So it's Angular Forms, it's Angular material components, it's internationalization provided by Angular, etc., etc. So a lot of technologies, and also we like built the production, built inside the Docker image, and then it is deployed to our infrastructure. So that's it, maybe from my side. Yeah, the more deeper questions can be asked at the end of session if you have one. Yeah, so the next topic is for mobile. So Plamena, please continue.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Plamena, and I'm leading the mobile development of the MAVN project. So if anyone is not familiar with the project, it's a Flutter project, actually. The mobile part is all Flutter. We have close to none native code, and the one that we actually have is just for integrations such as Firebase. So this is a quite old project in terms of Flutter. It's almost a year old, and at this point, Flutter was only a couple of months old. So it is not taking advantage of all of the latest libraries that we could benefit from, but we're hoping to change that soon. So since I mentioned Firebase, I want to go into the tools that we use. So we use Firebase extensively. We use it for pretty much everything, such as Crashlytics, analytics, deep links, remote config. And another tool that we use is CodeMagic, and we have a fully functioning CI/CD setup via CodeMagic that connects to our GitHub repo and to our App Store and Google Play accounts. So about the project itself, it is built around a very standard Flutter pattern, and that's the block pattern. For anyone not familiar with it, it's business logic components. So it's pretty much the views sit on the top. Then we have the business logic components that connect to repositories, which connect to either local storage or API. And everything is very structured. There's no jumping in between. And I will give you a bit of a detail about some of the layers. So since we have first the view, which is, I feel, a big gotcha for new developers, I will give it a bit more special attention. So the views are, as I said, built entirely in Flutter. There's no native code. And we try to use as many stateless widgets as possible. And if we have to persist state for some reason, we actually use hook widgets instead of the Flutter stateful widgets. I know that hook widgets are a bit difficult in the beginning to get into, but once you get used to them, they simplify the development a lot. So views communicate either to blocks or use cases. And let me give you a couple of details about blocks. So they can be regarded a bit like, let's say, view models. We're trying to make them as abstract and generic as possible. And they have only one purpose. Each block has only one purpose. For example, imagine that you have to fetch a list of notifications, okay? So you would have one block for fetching the notifications and then another block for managing them in any way, for example, marking them as read. And if you're not familiar with the block pattern, it is connected to the view via events, and it exposes states that the view can use. And an example of a state in our case would be like a loading state while the data is being fetched, also error state in case something bad happens, or even the loaded state when the data is actually loaded. I will not concentrate so much on the other parts since they're very standard parts that we can use in any mobile development, but I will give you a bit more details about what's next. So I told you about the project structure, everything's good and well, right? But there are a few steps that are ahead of us. And first of all, we have some exciting features to develop. We also have to add social media integration. And as I mentioned, the project is quite old, so it needs to be rebranded and updated a little. We are in the process of internationalizing the application. We have just added the German language for the next release, and we hope to add some more languages. And also, we're hoping to migrate to some of the great libraries that have been introduced in the past year. I will be happy to answer any questions that you guys post in the chat in the Q&A session, but now I would like to hand it to Sergey, who will give you more details about the backend.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm a technical lead of MAVN backend development. Let me share my screen. So please let me know when you can see it. Yeah, so we have this general documentation for developers, which would be shared soon in welcome repository, which is a good place for everyone, for any contributor to start looking into the project itself. So this document contains general introduction documentation, also technical description of a project. So let me cover part of it, and as I said, it would be available a little bit later in welcome repository MD file. Most of it is already there, but we'll share the whole document a little bit later. So what about technology stack for the project itself? As it was mentioned earlier, since it's a microservice architecture, we using C# as a base programming language for developing our backend components. As it was mentioned, we use C#, JavaScript, and Angular 9 for developing our front-end components, and Flutter for mobile app. As it's industry standard, we Dockerize our backend components. Actually, front components are Dockerized as well. We use Kubernetes as an infrastructure tool for managing deployment units in our internal environment, which we use for demonstration and hosting components for demo environment, which is used to provide an access to demo admin portal, which was shown a little bit before. Here, as you can see, this list has some additional information like what is this tools, what it was, why was it chosen at the time as a part of a solution. Some of them have historical reasons, some is just a good choice for current industry state. So for cache, distributed caching, we use Redis. For event bus, we use RabbitMQ. As you can see, since we mostly stick to Microsoft technology stack, obviously for relational database we use Microsoft SQL. Also for now, MAVN code base is quite heavily dependent on Azure services. We use Azure storage accounts for storing logs in Azure tables. We use Azure queues and Azure blobs for storing binary files, and some other Azure services such as Key Vault and blockchain, because initially the code base for MAVN was used for referral program solution based on blockchain. So we have a part which is interactive blockchain as well. We use Azure SendGrid as the mailing service. We use the native Fire Cloud messaging mechanics to send push notifications to our mobile app. We use Anti-Framework for ORM. And now about how external contributors can actually deploy these components locally. Right now it's kind of hard to do this independently on a local machine. So in some, let's say, for our partner organization, we can provide access to our internal environment through VPN access, and by doing so, it becomes very easy to access our internal Kubernetes environment and run components locally with minimal requirements, minimal additional work to run the component itself. But if you want to, if you don't have access to this internal environment, you're a third-party developer who wants to contribute, it's still possible to do this. You can go to a welcome repository and open this how to run backend MD file. So here you have a set of instructions about how you can deploy these dependencies in case your backend component or front component needs this dependency to run locally. And in this case, we provide instructions how each dependency can be set up locally, and you can run it. So to prevent components from failing, since it doesn't have a dependency. And for those of you who are from partner organization, they can use this VPN connection configuration MD file to get an idea how to get an access to internal VPN. We provide a contact here or a person, and how it could be done once you provided the required configuration files to access internal environment. So that's basically it. I believe at this moment from my side. And if you have any additional questions, I hope so that you have. We can discuss them later in Q&A part of a session. And next one would be our head of in DevOps team, Georgi, and he will cover infrastructure and CI/CD part of the solution. Georgi, please continue.
Yeah, hello everybody. So as Sergey told, I'm a cloud expert and senior DevOps engineer. And briefly about our infrastructure. Can you share the slides, please? I don't know who's sharing the slides. So, Elena, maybe. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. So, as Sergey told briefly, we are using Docker for our containerized applications, and we are using Kubernetes cluster for orchestration of the Docker containers. Kubernetes gives us the scalability and availability for our services that we need. And briefly about this system, it's a really closed environment. The services running inside have only the internal access, and that's why we are using the VPN. Of course, the ones that are public externally, they have the reachability from the external world. And that's why we are using the VPN connection. The VPN gives us the ability to reach the services running inside of the Kubernetes cluster. And about the Git flow, the next slide, please, Lena. Currently, we have two flows for our GitHub. The first one is a test flow that doesn't require any permission. It runs this flow and runs only the tests, and then sends the test coverage to the CoverallTO website. And the second one is the release flow, which requires a permission, and it's run manually by our team, and it builds automatically a Docker and builds a NuGet file automatically. And then this Docker is published to the Kubernetes cluster. For now, this last step is done manually, but we're working to automatize the full cycle, and soon this full CI/CD pipeline will be automatic, and it will be deployed automatically to cluster. I think that's all from my side. If anybody will have questions, I'm ready to answer the questions.
One thing which is worth mentioning, all these CI/CD pipelines are based on GitHub built-in actions mechanics. So everything is actually all configurations for pipeline are available in .github folder under each component. If you are familiar with GitHub actions, then it's easier for you to understand how CI/CD pipelines are configured.
Okay, and now a few words about contribution. First of all, thank you for wanting to contribute. We really appreciate all the awesome support we get from our community. We want to keep it as easy as possible to contribute changes that get things working in your environment. And there are a few guidelines we need contributors to follow to keep the project flowing smoothly. So, when you want to contribute, first thing you should do is to ensure an issue has been raised and indicate your intention to do the work by writing a comment on the issue. This will prevent duplication of effort. Of course, it's only about functional changes. It's not necessary to raise an issue for non-functional changes like refactoring, adding tests, reformatting code, adding documentation, updating packages, and etc. Second, fork a repo and create a new branch for an issue you're going to resolve. We are not working in branches in OpenMAVN organization. We are working with forks in your personal or in your organization's repositories. After work is done, ensure that all new features are covered with unit tests, and after that, create a pull request from your issue branch to the master branch of OpenMAVN repo. We will review it and provide any feedback if it's required. And of course, you always can check contributing MD document to find all these guidelines with additional explanations and instructions, how to deal with Git commands and so on. And after you are ready to contribute, you can run entire environment on your own machine, and you can find all these documents in welcome repo of our organization. So, Yelena?
Thank you everybody. Thank you for the speakers. Questions, please. We are ready to go to the Q&A session. Do we have some? No, we don't have some questions in the chat. Just who has some questions, please ask. Our session is, by the way, being recorded, so in case you would like to get back to it a bit later, you can do so. We will share the link to the video. And also, should you have some friends or colleagues interested in or considering to join, please feel free to share. Might be useful.
Maybe the question I always have, how do I, if I land on the GitHub, how do I start, how can I find out where to start? What's the easiest entry point? If I end up on the GitHub repository, I always never know where to go. If I just don't know where to contribute and what's the best entry point is, can someone maybe give a tip or advice?
The best entry point for our project is a welcome repo in our organization that is pinned on the top of repos list. And of course, you can use official GitHub guidelines if you are new to GitHub. I will send link to GitHub guidelines to the chat.
Does it make sense to share it right now and briefly show? What do you think?
No, they are simple and they're oriented to reading.
Okay, any further questions? If you happen to have a question not within this session, but for example, a bit later, you're welcome to ask us on the channels, both in Telegram or in Slack. If you are not yet in our channels, please join on Telegram, on Slack, especially for developers. It's important to be on Slack to be up to date.
I also have a question. May I ask?
Sure, great. Go ahead.
Thank you for all of the speakers for such a review. It looks like you have covered many different areas. And my question is, what kind of expertise you might need also? Maybe you haven't covered some area for the moment and you need such a specialist.
Currently, we have a lot of front-end developers, but we are in lack of back-end engineers. We really need C# programmers.
And Flutter as well.
And should it be someone experienced or middle or beginner?
We can find tasks for any level of experience.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Also, if anyone has an experience of creating SaaS solution based on some product, it would be great if you can contribute, since we plan to make this solution maybe as SaaS ready, or at least reduce a number of dependencies from it, so it could be easily deployed to local environment, and each external developer could run and play around with the product itself without current difficulties. So this kind of thing, I mean, maybe some Azure specialists or cloud in general. This kind of talents also would be great to have in the team.
Let me just jump here. You asked about experience. If there is anyone that would like to give Flutter a try, it doesn't matter if they've previously been a mobile developer or a backend developer, I will help with onboarding and give guidance on how to and where to start with the technology. I've previously worked with backend developers that have actually switched to Flutter and enjoyed it quite a lot. So if any of you guys feel like trying a new challenge, just ping me.
Okay, any other questions we should cover? Maybe you see
There's
some
a question in the chat also.
Yeah, next milestone for OpenMAVN. The next milestone is to provide an ability to buy vouchers with a credit card, PayPal, and so on. So next step is to implement Payrex payment system. So our partners will be able to register and start earning money.
Yeah, start getting help and targeted aid from the clients. Maybe some more topics the audience would like to we covered today? Maybe we missed something.
Technical people, very easy to understand things like this, right? Yeah.
Okay, if no questions, we could finish this session earlier. And of course, we are not. We are open for questions coming via other channels, now Telegram and Slack. So please feel free. What options?
In future, you'll be able to send the voucher to any registered user of our platform.
Yeah, you would be able to exchange. You, as a user of the mobile application of the OpenMAVN platform, would be able to exchange vouchers with other customers of the platform. Does it answer your question? Yes, from another.
Generally speaking, yes, it will be possible to use any QR code scanner to redeem voucher at the store. But of course, we will implement the easy go feature into our application.
Okay, thank you for the question. Thank you for your time. Thanks for your attention. Thank you for coming. Any comments from the team or from the guests or from anybody? Thank you too. You're welcome.
Unless someone has another additional questions, I'm stopping the recording.